Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
And this is our Bad Sister Season 2, Episode 7 reaction and review. I am sad right now. How are we only at one episode left? How is the season so short? I'm having such a good time with this world. I'm having to brace myself now for this reality that the finale may very well be the end of the series, and I do not like that one bit.
No, I mean, we've seen the interviews out there, and it's possible that this is the end.
Okay, Apple. You guys have more money than you know what to do with, obviously. You continue to produce shows that, to be frank, very few people, as in maybe just Jess and I, are watching. And so if you have the money to do that, call up Sharon Horgan and just be like, listen, we don't care if it's realistic or not. We just want these women to continually be in the most dramatic positions possible.
Yeah, is it realistic that this is happening? No. Does it matter? No. It's such a fun show. This has just been a blast to watch. I love season 1. I'm really enjoying season 2. I wish there was going to be more coming, and who knows, just because she said that probably the end doesn't always mean the end. I mean, we've got Dexter Resurrection coming back from the dead. So, I mean, let's just be realistic. Enough money could hopefully be driven up to her house that might change her mind.
Season 3, Grace : Resurrection.
Let's go!
Anything can happen right now. I mean, we have so much to talk about in this review. We have all the truth about Ian is now laid out on the table. We have Houlihan continuing to bumble around and somehow managing to find out a few things along the way.
Yep.
But before we go any further here, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more coverage of Bad Sisters. Be sure to join our Patreon. We've got a link in the description below. And over there, we are covering exclusively in video form Dune Prophecy, which is careening towards what I think is going to be a really exciting finale. We've been discussing that all season long. We also have reviews there of The Penguin, and we've got more exclusive coverage coming there in the new year. And that's also a great way to help support us to make these videos that we love to do for you guys so much.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone who has joined. It really does help us a lot.
All right. Ian.
Let's talk about Ian. Oh my God. So Eva got this notice that 100 grand had been transferred out of Blaned's savings account, that they both have their names on. Why Eva did this? I mean, it's easy for all of us to sit back on our couches and be like, why would you do such a thing? How could you do such a thing? But I mean, she's in the middle of this romance scheme that's going on top of the grief of losing her sister. None of us would really be thinking all that straight. I mean, you think that Ian's a good guy. He knows about all the things you guys have done. He knows about what Grace has done. I mean, he's still here. He's still trying. He's being helpful. Is he? They think he is. So, I mean, it's not that shocking that she would do this. But me as a viewer, I'm back no, never give access to money.
It's really fascinating and well played out, because I think me as well, I'm sitting here being like, no, what is wrong with you? But as you laid it out, like, the show wrote this together really well, where Eva is someone who is struggling a lot with grief, but she's also, convinced herself that Ian not only loved Grace and cared about Grace, but that he had been a good parent to Blaned, that he had all these connections with the family, that he was stepping up with everything that was going on with Angelica. So she was just seeing what were a number of pieces of good evidence in his favor, and because of the emotional state that she's in, and I think her own desperation for a connection at this time, she just didn't think anything through. But that whole scene at the bank was just so uncomfortable and cringeworthy to watch. It's just like, and a lot of us have been through this as well. It's like, if there's one place nobody ever wants to feel awkward, it's the bank, because you just feel like everybody is just staring at you and judging you. And then if something goes wrong, you just want to shrivel up because it's your money you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, she's on the floor. She's in tears. It was so heartbreaking. I mean, she's really feeling it. Like, she was there for her sisters when their parents had passed away and was really the person that's sort of in charge and the maternal figure for the sisters. And now for Blanche, she is the guardian, even though, Grace had been married to Ian. Ian is not the guardian. Grace has made sure that Eva is the guardian. So for her to make this choice, he really put the work in to get her to that point that she was willing to trust him. He knew about all the misdeeds that they had done. He's now in her bed, in her feelings. She admitted, she's like, yeah, I have feelings for him. Like, it's grown into something. This isn't just grief. This is something very real for her. It was just such a snow job. I can't even believe that's happened to her. It's so sad.
It is so sad. And she's just like, she's obviously really mad at Ian, but she's also really mad at herself
Yes.
because, there was already suspicion around BB's had all her judgments about it. And so
Even Angelica has tried to say something.
yeah, it's one of these sort of situations where now she's looking back and it's like, everybody was right and I didn't listen to them and I thought they were doing X, Y, and Z. And I mean, granted, nobody else knew exactly the full lengths here of what Ian was doing, but still, like, she's going to blame herself in this moment. And the only thing she can really do is try to find a way to make it right.
And she shouldn't blame herself. There wasn't enough signs there. Like, he knew some pretty dark stuff that they had done. He was still being very supportive, not of just Eva, but also of Blanche and the sisters. I mean, BB had a little suspicion maybe something was going on, but she didn't know nearly enough to be like, let's all stay away from Ian. That didn't come up in nearly enough time. I mean, Angelica had been threatened by him, but the sisters thought that he was standing up for them. I mean, the information that Angelica gave a little bit later when Ursula went to the hospital was like, listen, like this laid it all out. This is everything that happened. Like, this was an accident. We didn't know what to do. Becca jumped in after you. Like, we were really trying to help you. Well, why didn't you call somebody? Well, we were afraid of Ian. Things were going on. And it finally came out where Angelica was like, yeah, there has been something really weird, because me and Grace, we used to actually be really close. We were really good friends. We were both in this grief sessions together and we became really close. I mean, she was really close with Roger. She was really close with me. Then in swoops Ian, who I don't think was grieving anybody at all, and starts pulling her away, where now it's the two of them being like, oh, Angelica, she's the grief thief, where it's not exactly what's happening.
Is the real winner of this episode Angelica, because in so many different ways, like, she's still manipulative and she's no saint here. Like, we can't consider her that. But first and foremost, I will say this is my one minor slab of beef with this episode. I'm obviously really glad that Angelica is still alive. I did not want Fiona Shaw to leave this world so quickly. How did they not know that she was still alive? Like, she was wearing a life preserver when she was clonged off the boat. Becca jumped in the water. Couldn't you not, like, see her floating somewhere? I mean, I'm sure Angelica was passed out, so she wasn't able to, like, cry out for help, but...
It may have taken a little while for her to float back up to the surface. I mean, the life preserver will help you float, but you still have to float back up, right? I mean, it's not the end-all be-all answer to anything. Where they are, the water is vast. They've got the boat going around. There's waves. She's floating out. It is what it is. I'm not surprised in the least that they couldn't see her or find her.
I will say this, though. Knowing what we know about Angelica, she will spend the rest of her life bringing this up in any situation. Like, the moment she's inconvenienced by anything at the grocery store with Roger, she is going to be like, I was left for dead for 3 days, and it's going to get longer, and it's going to be, I was out there for a month, and I had to contact, she is going to just milk this to nobody's business.
Good for you, Angelica, you milk it. It was a horrible situation that happened to you. I feel terrible for you. Yeah, you're a nosy bee, and you're in everybody's business, and, you tried to get $200 out of Ursula for a window for a grief center. I mean, that's not that bad, really. I mean... yeah, she shouldn't have been messing around in BB's marriage, but BB's done worse to me, I feel, this season anyways with that rabbit. So, it all equals out. You milk that for what you need to. That was a pretty traumatic experience, I'm not gonna lie.
It was, and I just think that what Sharon has done a really good job at this season in particular. Is kind of getting us all to look over in one direction when in reality the bad stuff is in the totally other direction. Like we were all convinced that Angelica was the big bad, that she was up to all these nefarious things. And I mean, she intentionally planted evidence with that whole Ursula stuff to just get us to totally hate this character and I think her body was being dumped out in the trunk when really it was Ian all along.
Yeah, this is where I like interviews and I don't like interviews preseason because it was out like a week or two before the big Ian reveal that there was a bigger, badder person that was worse than Angelica that was going to be on this season. And it was going to be this big surprise. And I'm just like, bruh, there's only Ian. There's nobody else. It's not Roger. And if it's not Angelica,
Yeah.
then who could it be? I was just like, guys, stop it. It's got to be Ian.
Yeah, and I mean, I've kind of gone back and forth on whether or not I love that once again the quote unquote villain of the season is someone who was attached to Grace at a certain point, but the way in which that the story has been told, like it does totally make sense. Like she was in a really vulnerable spot. This is
Yes.
somebody who took advantage of her. I think a lot of Angelica's suspicions to the point where she's questioning his grief and all of that was totally accurate. I think we can now very much assume, especially with the way that this episode ended, that this is something that he had planned out a good percentage of time in advance.
Yeah, my biggest clue in that last episode was that USB stick. I'm like, why is he putting that in there? Why is he taking this
Yes.
footage? This is not right. Something's not right. And for Ian, he decided not only was he going to take the money, but that he was then going to basically air them out for what happened to Angelica. And it's interesting that he decided to go in this direction because it does give him some more sort of protection if Angelica is dead, and he may or may not have known at that point that he put that in, that it's like they could have just been locked away and taken care of, and he just never would have had to worry about it again. If she is alive, there's still this video of them doing what they were doing and not telling anybody. So it makes them unreliable in the eyes of the law, which makes him more reliable.
And because of the way that this episode ended, are we in a spot now where it's like, okay, we now understand what was going on with Ian and the USB stick and how he was prepared for all of that because
Yeah.
he's a former cop. He done this on other occasions with other people. Is this his only instance of it? I was very confused for a little while too about, okay, well, how is all this possible if he's married to this other person? And the only thing I can kind of think of is like, okay, he's married to his real life, I'm guessing, as Cormac, and then he becomes Ian. He marries Grace as Ian, but then even then I'm kind of like, okay, well, is there some sort of system that you could kind of check where it's like, oh, this dead person is marrying you? Doesn't work that way? Like how much were things covered up?
Yeah, it's confusing, but that's okay because this whole world is a little bit fantastical anyways.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like reality, but it's so crazy the things that are happening here. You have to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest question I have here for Ian slash Cormac at this point is like, dude, you really thought that you were never going to be found out amidst all of this? Because it's one of these situations where if you're responsible for everything that's happened to Grace and that you were taking advantage of her and trying to get the money in X, Y, and Z, you're talking about a family with a lot of sisters. And, whether it's sisters, brothers, or whatever. I mean, I didn't grow up with a ton of siblings, but I know people who did. You do not want to mess around with that family because they're always really, really protective of each other.
I think he just thought that this was going to be a lot less complicated than it was, that the money was going to end up going to him because he was the spouse and that's how it was going to work out. But tinfoil hat, I still think that Grace figured out something was going on when she told him about JP and he started to walk away and she hit him in his back and he turned around. I think she realized what was going on. And the sisters talked about it a little bit as well because she took out that 20 grand
Yeah.
and hid it. And then instead of him getting whatever money she was going to get from, passing away or dying, that's not what happened. It all got put into this trust for her daughter instead, and it became more complicated. I think I still think he drove Grace off the road
Hmm.
or something along those lines. And he thought he was going to get the money and it didn't work out that way. And he had to shift the plan. But because that money was with a child, I think he underestimated at that point that the sisters were going to try to get that money back. If it was just Grace had this money, she died, it's gone to the husband, and the husband disappears, I think it would be less likely they would be after him. But because it's a child and it
Yeah.
went to their niece, that now they're like, oh, no, 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 you're not taking from a kid.
Yeah, I just hope that right now, Ian, you are ready to spend some time in that trunk because that's where you're getting. It's got to be in the trunk now. Like, there's like no other options, right?
Oh, 100% it's Ian in the trunk at this point. I mean, we only have one episode left. And one of the biggest clues that makes me feel like it is Ian in the trunk, besides the fact of all the stuff that he's done, when we very first saw the scene at the trunk and we
Mhm.
saw the sisters pulling up, Becca looked like she had gotten into some sort of physical altercation with somebody. Like she had like
Oh.
bruising all over her face. And now that we know that Ian Cormac is capable of that,
Yeah.
because we know that something like that happened with his wife. She had made a complaint to the police. She ended up withdrawing it. And now she's part of this whole scheme that's going on with what happened with Grace. I just think that there's going to be some sort of a tussle, some sort of a fight, and with Ian, and Becca's going to end up getting punched by him.
Yeah, there's a pretty good chance of that. I mean, they're going to stop at nothing to make sure that he doesn't have Blanted. Like the way that this
Right.
episode ended, like the stakes are really, really high. And now I'm going to make a controversial take. It's going to get people mad because why not?
All right.
I am coming around on Houlihan. Listen, is she?
Listen, lots of people seem to be around on Houlihan. I feel like I'm still on Houlihan Island where I'm just like, girl, like you are able to follow the clues and get to some stuff, but I think it's taking you way longer because you just blurt out too much information for people. I am still so far out on her. When she found out really about that money and what Loftus was doing about it, and she was going to get up on stage and out him for it while his daughter is there, I was like, get into the trunk.
Listen, is she annoying? Yes. Do I want
Yes.
her working at my police department? No. But
The
she's
Matt Police
at the Matt Police Department. She's not a detective. She's not on the street. She's not a sergeant. She's nothing. I would not trust her. But she's doing something. It's like, listen, Houlihan, at
Is
least,
she?
hey, you looked up some stuff. You're making some little bit of progress. Yeah, you're still very annoying, but my opinion of you is slightly higher than it's been. I mean, Loftus, like, what is he doing? It's just like, at least you are trying.
He's retired. He doesn't need to do anything anymore. I have no problem with him doing nothing at this point where he's just like, return the money, let it go. He's retired. He doesn't need to be doing anything anymore. But Houlihan getting that little USB stick and all of a sudden jumping into Angelica's been murdered, and I'm just like, nah, she's been found. And that's part of what my problem with Houlihan has been this season, is that she's just train speeding ahead on things without taking the minute to figure things out or talk to other people, see what's coming up before she's hauled in all the Garvey sisters to be arrested for a murder that never happened.
Houlihan at this point is basically, let's just say, we've all entered a baking competition here because I love baked goods and this is the holiday season. And everybody has turned up with a pie that is burnt to a crisp. Houlihan shows up with a pie that's charred, but there's a little bit in the middle where you can scoop out, I don't know, the apples, the cherries, but it's like, I will take this piece of apple pie that nobody else is even offering me. At least you gave me something, Houlihan.
Houlihan is the person who figured out that Ian Riley is not who he is. She really was able to figure it out, to put the feelers out there, to learn a little bit more, learn that he was a cop, learned all these charges that were up against him and when he left the force and what's going on.
Let's talk for a moment here about Becca, who I have now coined as my favorite Garvey sister ever since BB did everything she did this season. I I'm disappointed. Is it wrong that I'm still rooting for Becca and Matt Claflin? I don't know why. I'm just much more invested in the two of them. I don't think Joe is like the worst human being of all time, but he's just so boring. I'm just not interested in him. So I'm sorry. I just can't root for this.
I like Joe better than I did. I think with him really putting it out there and just being like, girl, I am not a bad man. Like, I'm not a bad person. I'm a person who loves you and cares about you. You're making huge decisions without me, of somebody who would like to be part of you and your life and our child's life. I love you. I just like, it's a pretty good argument that he's making here. I understand. I think there's just too much trauma that's happened between Becca and Matt to make it work. And sometimes that just happens. Maybe kind of like what happened with Grace and Roger. I really like the two of them. I like the idea of them being together, but after what they did together, that just may not have been anything that they could get past together.
Are you glad that Roger didn't ask anyone out in this episode?
Yeah, well, there's still the finale.
We've still got time, everyone. Now,
Yeah.
It's been a really, really fun season, and it feels like we kind of have a sense as to where things are going entering the finale, but that's fine. If you guys made us wait this long for a mystery to start to be pieced together, like, I'm not mad at that at all.
I'm really curious what Ian's play is here. Like, he picked up Blanid from school and was like, "Hi, Eva. I'm here at the house with Blanid. Let's talk." It's like, what is your plan here? Like, are you just going to be, I can take her at any point? I mean, you can do anything at any point. This is really the motivation that I had been waiting for, of when are the sisters actually going to end up murdering somebody themselves because they need to, because something like this is happening, where Ian can come and get Blanket at any time. He's got over them, what happened with JP, what happened with Grace, like all these different things that they were involved in for the rest of their lives. If he wants to come and ask them for money until they're 70, he can do that. And that's a really difficult, dangerous position for all four of those sisters to be in at this point.
Yeah.
I really want to know, going into the finale, are they actually going to kill him?
One, I hope they do. And two, I hope.
So weird. I hope so too.
I know, like, what's wrong with us?
I don't know.
I think it's also specifically, I want it to happen, but I want it to happen as a result of like some really thought out, elaborate scheme. Sort of like we saw them plotting all this stuff for JP in season 1, and a lot of it didn't land. It's just, I love a good plotting scene. And so I want this to be some really elaborate, sort of clever thing. It's not going to be as fun to me if it's just sort of like, quick, flash in the pan. Okay, he's dead now. Oh, now he's in the trunk.
Oh, I'll be okay with that. I need Eva to just be like on the sly, texting everybody to come over and be like, "We're doing this and we're doing it right now." And all four sisters just do it in the living room.
Well,
throw them in the trunk, wrap them in the cow blanket.
It feels like we're at least getting closure, but based on what we said at the start of this, I think there is going to be an ending of it. We're always going to want more because this show is just so incredible. And so just, I don't know. I just find it so fascinating to unpeel all these different layers. But that's where we are coming out of episode 7. We will be back for the finale. So hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss that. And if you want to support us further, be sure to join our Patreon for exclusive video coverage of Dune Prophecy. That is a great way to support us. Thank you so much for those who have, and we'll see you here next time.